Then we have the squamous cell carcinoma of the skin. This is more aggressive than basal cell carcinoma, larger cells with a eosinophilic cytoplasm. So it's good to remember when we talk about staining, when you talk of something being eosinophilic, I think it's pink. It is tend to stain pink, as opposed to basophilic, we tend to stain bluish. So it's good to remember back to those staining when we talked about staining, so that when you talk about large cells with eosinophilic cytoplasm, so it means that cytoplasm is pink staining. And then there is keratinization. This keratin, we know the keratin that forms or the conified layer would be on the surface, but in this case, it will be actually, it can even keratins form inside. So there's what we call keratinization, formation of keratin in those tumor cells. And it may arise from carcinoma in situ, which we call Bowen's disease. So we talked about carcinoma in situ in almost every other tumors. It can be carcinoma in situ. That is basically tumor, the cells. It's malignant, but it has not breached the basement membrane. So it's strongly associated also, just like the basal cell carcinoma, with chronic sun exposure. Yeah, and that is why people, for example, who go to the coast to bask in the sun and so on, they're usually advised to have sunscreen, to apply sunscreens on themselves. This one prevents that sun exposure, and it may cause injury to the skin and may predispose to squamous cell carcinoma of the skin. And this one may spread via the lymphatic channels to regional lymph nodes. So, of course, we talked in pathology 1 about how tumors or malignancies spread. One of the spread was lymphatic spread. Another one, of course, is hematogena, that is into the blood. But this one tends to spread through the lymphatic channels to regional lymph node. Remember the lymphatic that we talked about, they take the lymph to the lymph nodes. So that is where the metastasis, those tumors are likely to end up in regional. That is the lymph nodes that are around that particular area of the skin. And also it's common in older people. Remember we talked about basal cell being common from middle age. So this one is common in older people. Yeah, but of course you cannot say it cannot occur it can occur in any age, but it's more common in older people. And some of the things that predispose to squamous cell carcinoma of the skin will include all bands. Yeah. There's something we call Majolin ulcer, and I think in one of in probably pathology 1, there was a picture of a man who had a tumor in the head where there had been a previous bands. So old bands can predispose to squamous cell carcinoma. Oral cavity, that is the mouth, it is predisposed by those chewing betel nuts. I don't know whether in Kenya there are people who chew that, and there are people who chew tobacco. I'm sure you've seen people who chew tobacco. Even in our rural areas, there are people who, instead of taking through the nose, they actually chew tobacco, and they would be chewing tobacco. And I'm sure we've seen a lot of Indian, Wahindi, they like chewing. Most of them, there are something they're always chewing. So that one tends to predispose people to develop the squamous cell carcinoma of the oral cavity of the mouth, the inside part of the mouth. Another thing that predisposes to development of squamous cell carcinoma would be ionizing radiation. Talking about X-rays, exposure to radiation, like in CT scan, in X-rays, and others. Yeah, so that's what we mean by ionizing radiation. And industrial carcinogens, maybe in people who work in industries that produce maybe paints and other things. It is thought that these are some of the things that can predispose you to squamous cell carcinoma of the skin when your skin is coming in contact with these particular chemicals. And morphologically, or when you look at it grossly, it may present as an ulcer on the skin, or it may present as a fungatic polypoid growth. So and I know fungating, we all know it grows outside, something that is growing out. Yeah, fungating polypoid growth. So that is how it may appear. You look at the skin, there is an ulcer, maybe that is not healing, or there may be a mass that is coming out, that is fungating. For example, when you look at that next diagram there, you can see in that person's leg, the lower part of the leg, that is almost the around the medial malleolar region, you have an ulcerating growth there. That is an ulcer that is formed there. And then you can see in that ear, there is a growth that is polypoid. There is a fungating growth. So those are some of the way squamous cell carcinoma can appear. It can come as an ulcer. It can present as a fungating growth in any part of the body. So in this case, we've just given the ear and the leg. Anywhere where there is skin, and we have skin covering all our bodies. And then, of course, there is a picture there. That is a picture of a specimen of a foot. Probably this man, this was amputated because of because one way of trying to deal with cancer, if you want to treat it, if you get it early, then you excise it. In this case, you have to do white excision. In this case, you have to remove below amputation to prevent it from spreading. And then you see it has been cut, and you can see it was on the foot. So that's squamous cell carcinoma affecting the plantar region, and that is the plantar region of foot. And histology of squamous cell carcinoma, what we've already talked about, pulse. So things will just be on the surface, but now we have them inside there. So what we call keratin pulse. So keratinization. You can see walls of malignant squamous cells there, and see proliferation. That means the cells coming from the and going to this on